Welcome to Extension Connection on Super Talk 1270. Thoughtful information and discussion with experts from both Burleigh and Morton County Extension Service offices. Extension Connection provides advice on family nutrition, issues in agriculture, lawn and garden, community leadership, homeowner concerns, and so much more. Live from the Super Talk 1270 studio, this is Extension Connection.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Extension Connection. This is Chandra Zeman-Belinsky. I am the Family and Consumer Sciences Agent in Burleigh County. So, yes, this week you will have Burleigh County joining you. Also, we have Shania Brooks. She's an FCS intern. We're happy to have her this summer. As well as Kelsey Sheldon, and she's our horticulture programming assistant. We're really happy to have her this summer. So this week, we're talking a little bit about, in my case, sharing about jelly making, jam making. We're going to define things like butters, like apple butters, conserves, marmalades. What does that mean? Preserves, various different definitions, and kind of how to make it. And we'll talk a little bit about our demonstrations. Kelsey, what do you got?
I got some upcoming events that I'm going to visit with about today, and then pretty much some problems that we've been seeing around Burleigh County as well as the state.
So, actually, I'm interested in problems. Can we start with that?
Yeah, sure. So a couple of the things that I've been seeing a lot in the office besides weed ID and, that kind of stuff.
How do we have it? Yeah.
Yeah, the common wood insect and stuff. We've been having a lot of that, but mainly we are still seeing some frost injury out there from that mid-May that we got. A lot of times we saw those on the ends of, that new growth and stuff.
Yeah.
It becomes brown, shrivels up.
Yes.
Don't confuse that, though, with herbicide injury. That's another one that I've been having a lot of issues with. That you're not going to see the plants or trees get brown in any way. What's going to happen is you're going to see curling of your leaves. If you have an evergreen tree, you're going to see twisting of those needles and stuff. We've had the big complaint already of rabbits all over, which I'm sure if you've looked out your window, you've seen them. We sure do.
This year is the year of, the jackrabbit, isn't it?
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of them and have had a lot of calls about them, but what people need to know and stuff with that is your best method of defense is fencing, and that is your most expensive option, but it's the best one because even if you use some of those deterrents and stuff, it's not going to stop a hungry rabbit. If it wants it bad enough, he'll come in there and stuff. So
we've even seen him. My husband and I, a lot of you know, we go to Devil's Lake weekly, and we like to see how agriculture's going as we go on that 3-hour drive, and you'll see the rabbits in the fields.
Yeah. I went on, about 2 weeks ago, I went on a horseback ride with my brother.
Okay.
And he thought there was a coyote out in the pasture, and here was 3 big rabbits jumping around.
Really?
Yeah,
because they're so big. Mm-hmm.
Yep, they're very big. Some other things that we have been noticing is galls on tree. Those are going to be like bumps or irregular growths on your leaves. Fairly common on maples, lindens. I've seen some on some ashes. Basically, what happens is a mite did some feeding or egg-laying activity earlier this spring. So those mites are gone now, and they've disrupted, a little bit of that plant cell growth, hence why we get the distortion on it. And the other thing is there's nothing to do about this. This is just a cosmetic effect, so it doesn't
mean there's a pocket of mites in there anymore.
No, not at all.
It just distorted the cell growth, like you say. Okay.
Yep, exactly. So I know I think it was in the western states, some people brought up that they've been noticing some sapsuckers or woodpeckers.
Yep.
A lot of times when you're seeing those or birds on your tree that are, pecking at the bark, there's usually an indication that there's insects in there. Insects are going to go after trees that are weakened or under stress. So, kind of be on the lookout for those. If you can put some different things in your tree, like people use pie tins, noisemakers, just to get them out of there, because if the damage is severe enough, we can, see issues from our tree then from all of that. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's a couple of things that are going on around the state, I guess, and in the county.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So we have some neighbors that planted some just yearling trees, really baby trees.
Yep.
And all of the leaves, all of the greenery, not necessarily the trunk structure, but the leaves are curled and brown.
Okay.
So that could, what you're saying, maybe be herbicide?
I'm guessing probably frost.
Or frost.
More than likely.
Okay,
'Cause you
probably
don't
because it's a
usually-
baby tree.
Yeah, and you don't see, unless they're spraying in their lawn, but usually
Yeah.
you'll see, herbicide injury, you don't see that browning color.
Okay, okay, got it.
And depending on when they got them in the ground as well,
Yeah.
if it was right before that frost, probably.
Trying to think of when, but yeah, okay, well, that's good to know. Poor things.
Yeah.
They'll come out of it, though, right? The frost
Yeah,
deal?
a lot of times then your new growth and stuff will be good to go. And
Right.
a lot of things too, like when we're dealing with trees, I always like to tell people, if it's 30% or less, your tree can handle that stress and it will bounce
Yeah.
out. A lot of times people come in that are actually more stressed than the tree itself. So a lot of our trees can bounce back from that kind of stuff.
That's a good rule. That's a good rule
Yep.
to remember. So when we're trimming, that's usually what I remember. And we trimmed in the fall from one of our bushes.
You don't want to take more than a third.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this lilac bush, I swear, sometimes, it takes over. So you probably could take more of this thing and it'd be fine.
Yep.
But, it was a good rule of thumb because we wanted to really hack the whole thing down. And so I said, well, let's just do a third. And so it was a good rule of thumb.
Yeah,
to remember.
I know some people, with lilacs and stuff, will cut them pretty close down to the ground.
Yeah,
And
because
you
they'll
can-
bounce.
They'll bounce right back.
Yeah.
Yep. They will
they
be
just
perfect.
don't bloom. You're cutting the buds off. It is very interesting to know, and I've learned this from you guys, that, those buds are there the fall before. And so, yes, if you're trimming in the fall, you're cutting the buds off. And it's neat. You can see that they're there.
Yep.
Yeah.
We just recommend always with pruning and stuff, you
Okay.
should be doing that during the dormant season, unless it's necessary during the summer. Like if you have a
Okay, right.
choke cherry tree that's got black knot, then go ahead and prune that out. Or, if you got fire blight on an apple tree. But otherwise, we recommend it during the dormant season because when you make a cut, you are creating a wound on there. And in the summer, you're going to be more prone to insects and disease getting into that tree.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
Yep. Okay, well, good. So would you like to get into jam and jelly after the break here?
Yeah,
How does
that would
sound?
be- that
I
would
know
be
a couple
great.
weeks ago you talked about strawberries, and we'll talk a little bit about strawberry jam and how to make it a little bit more of a nutritionally savvy choice by using less sugar.
Okay.
So actually, I think we'll do that here after the break.
Sounds good.
Welcome back this morning. You're joined, as we mentioned earlier in the segment, by Burley County this week. And I'm Chandra Zeman-Belinsky, the Family and Consumer Sciences Agent, joined here by Kelsey Sheldon, our horticulture program assistant. She knows everything about growing stuff. And we have Shania Brooks here. She's the FCS intern who has already proved herself very worthy this season. I'm happy to have her. And actually, while we're talking about interns, we have a project this summer where we will be doing a few videos. We're actually going to shoot a few videos. We're going to do this at Carmen's Kitchen Table throughout the month of June, which is exciting. Since we will be live shooting, I guess we'll be recording ultimately, and we'll be editing and things, but it'll be tough to have a big crowd, but we do want you to stop over at Carmen's Kitchen Table on the 3 days in which we're shooting. So let me give you the topics. Let me give you the days here. So the first day is this week. Yeah, Thursday, the 9th of June. The second is next week. The second shoot is next week on the 15th, which is a Wednesday. And I should say on the 9th, we're going to shoot light strawberry jam. So in other words, lower sugar choice. There's actually no added sugar in this recipe. Kind of exciting. The second week on the 15th, we will be talking about a pineapple salsa. It's a sweet salsa. You guys ever had mango salsa and stuff like that?
No, but I remember, was it last summer you did a watermelon salsa?
It could have been. Yep, I think we did.
A melon salsa.
Yeah, melon.
That wasn't actually too bad.
Yeah. Wasn't that interesting? That's right, Kelsey, and you tried it with me. And so then the last shoot is the 30th of June, the last day of June, and we're going to do pressure canning. I do get a fair amount of pressure canning questions.
So, Chandra, with these, are they going to be more like a demonstration for the audience that's there?
Right.
Then?
Okay, yeah, thanks for asking. So it's going to be more of a demonstration versus interactive.
Okay.
But I tell you what, I do encourage anybody to hang out, stay, give us a call, or, ask your questions at the end of the shoot. And, Carmen's Kitchen Table is the new kitchen store up north. It's, I think, on 43rd, you take a left as if you're going northbound. You take a left, so back westbound, a little bit west of Highway 83.
Yeah, I haven't been there. I've seen the location, but I
haven't
been there. I heard it's really cool.
It is really neat. And I think I'm going to, she has the higher end kitchen items, and, we still have a gift certificate from 2.5 years ago when we were married, so I think I'm going to buy some nice pots and pans from her.
That'd be perfect.
Well, don't your moms have the pots and pans from their wedding? It seems like everybody does.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Those
and
are the gifts that last.
Right. Yeah, my parents have been married over 45 years, and she still is using those same pots, and they're fine. They look great, So that's what I'm hoping to get, a nice set. And that's exactly why you can come over to Carmen's. But so she's offering her kitchen space for us to shoot these videos, which is exciting. So let's get into the order of business today, which is a jam and jelly making session. We want to help you out because what's coming up to, being in season right now, but strawberries.
Yep, strawberries.
Okay, and have you had any strawberry calls, Kelsey?
Not really. Not
yet.
Not
Okay.
anything about problems or anything.
Well, that's
like
good.
I said last month, I did talk, or a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Whenever I was on radio last, I did talk about fertilizing strawberries and stuff. So.
Right. Actually, can you repeat, how do you get a plumper berry?
Well, a lot of times too, and this is with anything in your garden and stuff, if you do, pick off some of those smaller fruits, you're going to encourage a larger growth on the ones you keep.
Remaining.
Yep.
I've even heard that with pumpkins and things
Pumpkins, tomatoes, yep.
Oh, that's good to know with strawberries, too, because it seemed like last year I had such small berries. My mom's strawberry patch is looking really good this year, so I'm excited about that. Mine isn't so hot, but I didn't take very good care of it over the winter. I probably should have covered it a little bit more. So, all right. Well, let's define what various different soft spreads actually means. Okay, so jelly and jams, they're a type of soft spread. You've probably also heard of butters. Let's start with butters here, like an apple butter or something of that nature. And they're kind of popular now, even at the farmers markets.
I really like apple butter a lot.
I do too. Apricot butter is probably my favorite just because I grew up with it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so butters are made, and I'm just going to read the definitions here, by cooking fruit pulp and sugar to a thick consistency that will still spread easily. So it's like a butter.
Okay.
Spices can be added depending on personal taste. And so it's more of a it's a thicker consistency but spread. So a little bit, this can pour, okay, typically. Mm-hmm. conserves or jam-like. Let's define jams first then. Jams are made by cooking crushed or chopped fruits. So in other words, you're not straining any of the fiber out. So, yep, so the jams have, you're using the whole piece of fruit and kind of crushing it up. I use a potato masher. As a matter of fact, I should bring mine from home. I didn't bring it today. We were going to try out a recipe. So potato masher and the key here for any of the chemistry of jams and jellies is to make sure that you're using what the recipe calls for sugar. Sugar is an important element. And what you want to do is you actually cook a jam with sugar until the mixture will round up on a spoon. Basically coat the spoon as you hold it up, and you know that you have the right consistency because it remains coated with the jam. Okay? So the gravity's not taking it all off the spoon. Jams do not hold their shape but are spreadable. Okay? Yep. And so how you can tell is you can invert after it's canned and everything. So before it's canned, you use the spoon method. Yep. After it's canned, okay, and sometimes you have to tweak your recipe. It might not turn out perfectly the first time, especially depending on your kitchen setup. But you invert the pint jar or the jelly jar size, which is a half pint, and you'd give it one sharp shake, and, everything should fall away. Okay. So let's get into conserves then. They're jam-like, so, they have more of the fiber in the fruit. It's not strained away. And are made by cooking 2 or more fruits with sugar until the mixture will either round up on a spoon, like jam, or flake from it, like jelly. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a second. A true conserve contains nuts and raisins. Really? I always wondered what conserve really, and I think back to when I went to my grandma's friends' houses. Okay. I mean, does anybody make conserve anymore? You don't hear of it.
I don't.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah. And sometimes with conserves you even have coconut in there, but those are kind of the older recipes, but it's still kind of fun to play with, and some of those things are coming back now. So let's define jelly here. Jellies are made from strained juice of fruit. You're only using the juice, and this is where you need your strainer. Jelly could be crystal clear and shimmering, okay, or it should be actually, not just could be. It should hold its shape but be soft enough to spread. And so this is the one where you have to do a hard shake upside down as the jar's inverted, and it will remain the same size and shape as the jar. So when I'm up at State Fair and I'm judging jellies and food preservation, I look for that texture to see if they have the right amount of pectin for to have the size remain. Well, marmalades real quick are soft fruit jellies containing small pieces of fruit or peel is the trick. Evenly suspended in the transparent jelly, so if it's evenly suspended, it was cooked correctly. If all the chunks fall to the bottom, it wasn't cooked enough. Yep. Okay, and then we have preserves. Before we go on the break here, we'll define our last one: preserves. Preserves are actually fruits preserved with sugar that where the fruit retains its shape. So I just think of a preserve could be like a strawberry pie mixture where it's the full strawberries and you can the pie mixture and then it's ready to go. You just bake a pie crust and put the filling in. That could be a preserve. And preserves are, tender and plump and shiny and beautiful looking. So, let's take a break and then we'll talk a little bit more about jam and jelly making. Welcome back. This week of Burleigh County. My name is Chandra Zeman-Belinsky, and I am the Family and Consumer Sciences Agent here on Extension Connection. I'm joined this week by Kelsey Sheldon. She's the Horticulture Program Assistant, And she's going to wrap up the show at the end here, talking a little bit about her events that she has coming up. She's doing a lot in the community this season. And then also we have Shania Brooks, the Family and Consumer Sciences intern, who's helping me out this summer. We have a project going on through the month of June where we're shooting 3 food preservation videos. We're going to be shooting them on the 9th of June, the 15th of June, and the 30th of June. You're welcome to join us at Carmen's Kitchen Table.
And what time is that?
I was going to say last time I didn't say that. Well, thank you. So 1:00 p.m. each session. You know, we have time to set up in the morning, and then we'll actually start shooting at 1. And, you know, this will be as we said, a video shoot, and so it'll be hard for me to field questions, but you're welcome to hang out, and we'll have a box for your questions and your contact information so that you can interact with me after the shoot is over. And so we're talking today, we chose the topic of the first subject matter, which is this week here on Thursday as we shoot the light strawberry jam video. So that means that we're actually not putting any extra sugar in our recipe. And if you know anything about jams and jellies, we just defined various different soft spreads in the last section. But a successful jam or jelly needs to have the proper ratio of these 4 different specific things. Fruit, you need the right amount of fruit, sugar, pectin, and acid. Those are the 4 important things for jams and jellies. Okay, and you know, there's various reasons, but one thing that we were reading on yesterday to make sure that we are up on all of the technical things so that we can shoot this video is that it's important to not to double your jelly batches, okay? It's interesting because a lot of times you want to use all of your fruit at once, and it can affect the overall boiling time, and that can affect your texture at the end, especially with the marmalades we were talking, because the suspension and the conserves as well with the suspension of the inclusions. So that meaning the peel in a marmalade or nuts and raisins in a conserve. So you want to stick with what the amount your recipe calls for and just keep doing it over and over again instead of double and tripling your batch. So the amount of fruit. And then another thing that's really important with fruit, you can imagine not only the type, but like how early you pick it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how ripe it is. And so for fruit, specifically jams and jellies, it has to do with the natural innate pectin that's within the fruit. So each fruit has kind of a different level of pectin. Some are high in pectin, some are low. But pectin is at its peak when the fruit is just ripe, which is obviously when everybody wants to find it and eat it. But when it comes to canning fruits, sometimes you want to catch it before it's fully ripe. In the case of jams and jellies, you want it to be just ripe. Okay? And so right now, if you are interested in making your own jam and jelly, you don't have your own strawberry patch, berries are on sale. So right now, berries have an amazing sale going on throughout the community. So a couple of the local grocery stores have just really great deals. And so actually that's what we've grabbed for our, since we don't have the luxury of having our own strawberry patch at the extension building, which maybe Kelsey can get on, right?
Yep.
So we got a few pints of strawberries, and they are really at very nice ripeness right now. So I think they're going to be about as peak as possible. Okay, now sugar. What happens is, let's actually get into pectin a little bit. Pectin is actually considered a carbohydrate. It's actually a gum. Okay, and so you guys probably know, if you've listened to the Extension Connection show before and heard me, I'm a food scientist, and so this is like my area that I love to talk about here. And so starches are amazing, and I love talking about simple sugars, compound sugars and different things. So starches are really complex carbohydrates. Well, starches are very similar to gums, but they're not the same thing. They're just different under the microscope, okay, different chemically, but they act very similarly. What do? They thicken your product. Mm-hmm. So what'll happen is you'll see on even various different smoothie drinks, or, gosh, really there's a structure to everything we eat. They're carbohydrates. It's like a fiber. Yeah. And so if you want a thicker beverage, you usually see a gum in there. Okay. And so pectin is one of those, and it thickens your jams and jellies.
So does a gum tend to be stickier than like a starch then? Is that the whole idea?
Not necessarily stickier. It's just different chemically. And you know what? When you think of gum, you do think of sticky, don't you?
Yeah, I think of like sticky, like chewing gum.
Yeah. You know what? Gums have a tendency to remain in a tighter weave. Yep. So they're stronger, so to speak. And I don't want to use that word necessarily, but it's easy to explain the concept. Mm-hmm. So starches can break down a little bit easier, okay? All right, so pectin, let's define it a little bit. So it's a carbohydrate, a gum. It's found in fruits naturally. When sugar is added, pectin in both the fruit or the commercial pectin, meaning the artificial that's added in, it actually precipitates out. So, it becomes a solid out of that mixture and forms fibers, insoluble fibers. So these don't break down with just the water process. They're still remaining to create the structure. So the boiling process doesn't break them down, insoluble. An acid, such as lemon juice or citric acid, aids in that process, so it actually just expedites it. That's why acid is one of the important elements here that we mentioned earlier. So this insoluble fiber produces a mesh-like structure that traps the fruit juice just like a sponge. Okay? So it traps the juice, so it's all suspended in there. And, this is where then it absorbs the water within, so it actually can trap the water, and this enables a gel to form. So that's what's happening with pectin. So pectin is so, so important. And as you heard, sugar is crucial in that process because it is what causes the pectin in the fruit to precipitate out and create that structure. Okay. And then acid is like the catalyst. It makes it happen faster or more readily. It's more likely to happen. Okay? All right. So this is why we go back to sugar's important. Pectin is really the most, really when it comes to jams and jellies, you got to use the right pectin. So in our case, we're using a light strawberry jam recipe. Well, that means that we're not adding any more sugar. So what are we going to do when sugar's super important? We're going to make the most of natural sugars from the fruit. Because just like fruit naturally has pectin, naturally has some sugars, which is why usually it's in the fruit group. All right. So getting back off the technical high horse here. So we want to go back to, we have certain pectins out there, commercial pectins, that are meant to help this formation of our gel structure without any added sugar, which is where we want to be if you're trying to be nutritionally savvy, especially if you're diabetic and things of that nature. And some of these low sugar or light, no sugar added jams and jellies are just fantastic. Mm-hmm. So you don't miss the sugar. So our recipe that we'll be showing on Thursday is going to be a white grape juice.
Oh.
2 more ingredients, obviously the strawberries, and then what's the third one?
Just the
pectin. Yep. So the pectin is specific for, the no sugar added recipes. So it's exciting because it's easy. But I think it's neat because we're using the grape juice, and no, this juice is not the sweetened type of juice. So it's just the natural sugars in the grape juice.
Is that what provides the acid then too?
Actually, there is some acid there.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. All right. Well, so, that's really the gist of jams and jellies from a technical standpoint. And, there's one other thing I wanted to mention. It's important to use a thermally tested recipe. And what we mean by this is it's from a reputable source. Anymore, we know more about microbiology than we did 20 years ago. And so some of your family recipes frankly might not be the safest. This is hard news for even my mom and my grandma to hear. And their pickle recipe has to be revised. I've had to tell them a couple times, and so it is the reality that you want to use a thermally tested recipe, and NDSU does do that. And I just want to mention one last thing here before we go on break. We do have a pH tester in our office. We aren't using it to to process test your recipes, but we are able to use it to say, hey, this is safe to eat or not. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Extension Connection. You're joined this week by Burleigh County. My name is Chandra Zeman-Belinsky. I'm the Family and Consumer Sciences Agent. I'm joined here by Kelsey Sheldon, and she is our Horticulture Program Assistant. She's doing a lot of things here she's about to tell us about throughout the next month. And we have Shania Brooks, who is the FCS intern. She's been helping us out already here the last few weeks. Well, Kelsey, what do you have on tap here for programming?
All right, so coming up this weekend, actually, Wilton is hosting their community annual event, which is called Wild in Wilton. I believe you're involved a little bit.
Yep, we're going to go support the 5K.
Yep, and the 5K that day is actually starting at 8 a.m., so if anybody's interested in that, that will be starting. They have a whole list of events going on Saturday. And I know they have a Facebook page, so if you want to check out the list of events, you definitely can. But myself, Ashley, and Amelia will be there from noon to 4. I'm going to be doing some junior master gardening activities, such as do-it-yourself marble garden pots, which that is made out of nail polish. You use nail polish and kind of water, and you can marble your pot. And and then we're going to be doing homemade rain gauges, and Amelia will be doing some straw rockets. So we encourage all youth to come on up that day, noon to 4. We will be there. So that's a fun event. Like I said, if you are interested in more of what's going on up there this weekend, go ahead and check out their Facebook page, Wild in Wilton. Another event I have starting next week is what we are calling Garden Gossip. So homeowners, gardeners, community members are welcome to join me during the month of June every Tuesday starting June 14th at our Burleigh County office from 10 to 11 for the Garden Gossip. Garden Gossip is going to be an opportunity for the public to come learn about garden, tree, and lawn problems we are seeing throughout the state. It is encouraged for the public to bring in any problems they might be experiencing in their lawns, gardens, or with trees. And these are going to be informal discussions and a great way for you guys, the attendants, to meet fellow gardeners. You can also feel free to bring in any advice or tips and tricks of gardening to share. So
that's neat. I know we're past the seed stage here, but a lot of times people want to talk about who's their favorite seed company. This is a chance to do it.
You bet. Or their favorite cultivar to grow. That would be really good too. So again, that will be starting next Tuesday, 10 to 11. And that will finish out the remaining Tuesdays in the month of June. Again, that is Garden Gossip.
We'll probably even have free coffee for you.
Yeah, I would say so. If I get ambitious, maybe I'll make some treats too.
All right.
And then at the end of the month, I have a family succulent gardening class. So if anybody's out there looking for a garden activity to do with your kids, come join us at Plant Perfect on June 25th for the family succulent gardening. What is happening is you and your family will create a succulent garden. You'll learn how to care for one, and then, of course, have fun picking out plants and designing it. There is 2 sessions that are going to be offered with a 15 family class limit, and I have had some calls on what kind of defines that family. Well, the family.
The family.
The family part of it and stuff, and so If you have 3-4 kids, that's totally fine, and you and your husband or yourself, or it doesn't even have to be. If you're a grandma and you want to bring in your grandchildren or an aunt and uncle, feel free to. So our first session is going to run 9 to 10, and then the second one will be 10 to 11, There is a $25 fee. That fee, though, is for just your family. It's not per person. It's per family. And that fee is going to cover a pot, some dirt, decorative rocks, and 1 succulent plant. There will be additional plants available to purchase that day. You do need your registration form and fee to reserve your spot in the class, and you can drop off or mail the payment to Burleigh County Extension. Additional information, you can go ahead and give me a call at 701-221-6865.
Yeah, so this is one of those deals where you don't need a babysitter. That's what we mean by family. Kids and adults, right?
Yep, exactly.
That's a nice definition.
So,
I like that.
in the past, we've done some youth classes and we've done some adult classes, so now we're bringing them both together. It's one way. So,
well, can you tell us quick, what do you mean by succulent? Maybe it's just me that doesn't know.
That's okay. So succulents, have you ever heard of a jade plant?
Yeah.
Chandra?
Oh, yeah.
They're usually I guess the best way, and it's probably not going to be the easiest way to describe them, but they usually seem shiny and they're, I guess, kind of plump.
Yeah.
They're plump.
Right. Yes.
The leaves are usually pretty full of water.
Right.
Yeah.
Liquid.
Gotcha.
Even
Like
Elvira plants.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of one way.
Gotcha.
Those succulent plants, the nice thing about them is they are very low maintenance. They don't require a lot of water.
Yeah, they seem to be. Okay.
And they're pretty hardy plants. So I know in the past, for fairy gardenings and stuff, they work perfect for that as well.
Yep.
So I guess one last thing I was going to talk a little bit about is I have a program as well this week with container gardening. So just to kind of touch base on container gardening, why would a person container garden? People who have areas of poor soil, it can make it difficult to establish a garden. If a person has a physical disability, or, if you're an elderly person, you just don't have, the knees anymore like you used to.
Right.
It's not easy for you to be on the ground. So container gardening is ideal for individuals with limited space, or like I said, a physical, I guess.
Limitation.
Yep, limitation. Thank you for that. So a lot of times people think right away raised beds, and that is an option for container gardening. It works very well. The other thing, though, is you can actually use almost any type of container. Any container that's going to hold soil and provide good drainage. If your container doesn't have drainage, as long as you can drill some holes around the bottom of it, it will still work. And to even further drainage, you can always put in some gravel or small stones at the bottom. A big question that always comes with container gardening is what type of soil is ideal. And you're going to want a growing medium that is well aerated but doesn't dry out too fast. It needs to retain that moisture for the plant growth. We never want to choose garden soil by itself, because once you put it in the container, the drainage and aeration is severely impeded from it. So also you want to make sure your growing medium is free of weed seed and plant disease organisms. If you are going to container garden, location is very important. You need to have it in an area that will receive full sun or more than 6 hours of sunlight a day. And then the big question after that comes, how often does watering need to be done?
Yeah.
And that's going to be done based on the needs rather than a general rule of thumb. When I talk to people, a general rule of thumb is an inch of water per week without the help of Mother Nature. But watering needs to be done, before that plant starts showing signs of severely wilting. And one way you can test if your container needs water is to fill the soil. So if that first inch or so is dry, go ahead and apply water.
Okay.
One thing that people who are container gardening need to make sure is at some point you are going to need to add fertilizer. A slow release or a water-soluble fertilizer is going to be a good option for that. And then just to wrap up here, a couple tips. It is good to thoroughly water your container before planting in it. You want to plant at the indicated depth of the seed packet, and you may want to incorporate pinching, which is removing the tip of the plant when it gets too leggy or tall. It will cause that plant to become bushier. And lastly, deadheading is also effective, which is removing those flowers that are well spent or dead.
Okay.
So
Yep.
that kind of wraps it up for me today.
Well, that's good to know because that's all we're doing for garden this year is container gardening.
Wonderful.
So you can do this for vegetables,
Herbs, flowers.
Yeah, okay. Or
Pretty much
anything.
anything that grows, right?
Yep, you're exactly right. And you can do it all 4 seasons if you're willing to put it in the
Right,
house. So.
right. Okay. Well, good. And, that takes us to the conclusion of Extension Connection this week. Thanks for joining us.